I'll be talking about ocean information and advisory services. And my talk will be a little different to the previous two distinguished panelists. So what I'll try to show here is basically what are these tools, scientific methods and tools that we have to really understand the oceans and its resources and then manage them as we go forward. The Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, shortly called Incois, most of you probably know it by the name Incois. So we're an institute under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India, and then we are located in Hyderabad. So I don't think I need to go over this. Professor Kurian also mentioned about this in his presentation very nicely. So the ocean is very important actually, and we get the oxygen we breathe, and then very importantly our climate is regulated by the oceans. And then what we are talking about, we are having a lot of discussions on the economy. I mean, how oceans contribute to the economy, and then how we need to understand the oceans, and then how we need to really make sure that whatever activities that we do around the oceans are sustainable in the long term. Coming to what Incois does, Incois actually provides, Incois occupies a very niche space in the entire ocean science and services community world over, in fact. So we actually try to take the science, the understanding from science, and then try to convert it into a service that is really useful to a wide range of maritime and coastal stakeholders. These could be fishermen, these could be coastal states, the Met departments, or strategic users like navies and coast guards, or ports and harbors, offshore shipping and oil and natural gas industry, research institutions, academia, policymakers. So these are all the our stakeholder base, the users to whom we provide services, information services and advisories. And then over the years, Incois has been in existence for the past 2 decades. And then we categorize our services into like, for example, ecosystem related services, disaster related services, coastal geospatial services, data related services, and also capacity building, for example, enhancing ocean literacy amongst different stakeholders. And to be able to deliver these services, as you would appreciate, we need a huge network in terms of resources, in terms of observing systems, in terms of science, which we use as the bedrock for developing these services. And then, of course, techniques and tools like satellite oceanography, ocean modeling, and then, of course, collaboration with several institutions, because there are several institutions in the country which deal with the subject of oceans under different ministries. So we kind of try to coordinate with all these institutions and ministries to be able to come up with these services. So our mission is basically to provide ocean information and advisory services to all those stakeholders which I mentioned before, and that we do it through ocean observations, ocean modeling, and then focused and systematic research. Now, I'll actually quickly run through a few of our services that we give from Incois. I'll not talk too much about the science and then try to keep it very general. So this is a service which several of you in this meeting, in this panel might know. It's called the Potential Fishing Zone Advisory Services. The prime stakeholders here, our prime stakeholders are the fishing community, the traditional coastal fishing community. We do a lot of satellite data analysis. We receive data sets at Incois and then try to identify zones that actually could have fish. So what we are trying to identify here is the environment in the sea, which is actually conducive for shoaling of fishes. This is mostly relevant for pelagic fishes. And then we try to provide this information to fishermen on a daily basis. And then, so in terms of simple maps and text, which actually is sent to about 700,000 mobile phones, for example, through an SMS. This goes on a daily basis, and then it helps fishermen reduce their search times and enhance the economics of their fishing operations. So this is one of the main surveys that goes out from Incois. And then over a period of time, with a lot of demand from the users, we have actually also come up with a service called the tuna fishing advisories. So where we analyze data, scientific data from satellite data sets as well as models. In addition to chlorophyll, sea surface temperature, we actually also use water clarity index, and then of course data on ocean currents, winds, etc., to provide three-dimensional advisories on tuna fishing. So we work very closely with a lot of agencies, fisheries agencies in the country. We have partnered with agencies like CMFRI, Fisheries Survey of India, the Indian Space Research Organization, agencies like SAC and NRSC, to really be able to come up with the fishing advisories, which is a very mature kind of application that we actually provide from Incois, which reaches the common fisherman. Now, the next kind of service that we provide, which is basically called the Coral Bleaching Alert Service, which is again very useful for management of our coral resources, where we try to use, where we use information on the long-term sea surface temperatures to be able to come up with coral bleaching alerts. We kind of make an analysis of satellite retrieved sea surface temperatures and come up with products which in simple terms say if there is a chance of corals bleaching due to persistent high temperatures. So this is again a service, ecosystem service, that is provided from Incois. And then other very important service that we launched recently, earlier last year in February, is basically the bloom indices, where we again use a lot of satellite data sets. India has a satellite called OceanSat. As most of you know, the OceanSat 2. ISRO is going to launch the OceanSat 3 shortly. So this has an ocean color monitor. So we use data from ocean color monitor to come up with products like the chlorophyll A, etc. And then use this information, satellite retrieved information, to be able to provide information on algal blooms. So this, we do it for 4 regions along the coast of India: Northern Arabian Sea, off Kochi, Gulf of Mannar, and Gopalpur. So we actually have come up with a methodology, a published methodology, scientific methodology, that we use a lot of satellite data products, not only chlorophyll, sea surface temperature, etc., and then provide these bloom indices. And we are now working on coastal monitoring and prediction systems along with our sister organization in Chennai called the National Center for Coastal Research, where we are trying to set up coastal observatories, buoy-based observatories at 6 locations along the coastline of the country. What you see here in red dots in this central panel, which can actually make measurements of all ocean physical, chemical, and biogeochemical parameters, and then send it to the our center in real time. And then we make this information to be able to provide a model the water quality along the coastal regions. And so those were some services that we give for the ecosystem services. And we also, like I said, have services for the safety. One important service that we provide from Incois is the Tsunami early warning system, which was set up after 2004 tsunami. So we have a large network of seismic stations, tsunami buoys, tide gauges, which actually communicate to the warning center at Incois in real time. We actually do a lot of modeling, and we have decision support tools that we have at Incois here, which we use. So the warning center runs on a 24/7 basis. We actually interact with a lot of national and international institutions to be able to generate these services. And this is actually one of the it's kind of second to none, the tsunami early warning system of India. And we have been operational since 2007. We have been enhancing our capabilities, enhancing the accuracies, reducing the timelines. in providing this tsunami early warning services, not only for India, but to the whole Indian Ocean Rim countries. About 25 countries in the Indian Ocean Rim get tsunami advisories from Incois on a routine basis. So this is what we have recently upgraded, because tsunamis, as you are aware, they're not very frequent events, but then when the event happens, we know what happened in 2004. They can be very, very disastrous. So keeping that in mind, we have developed this center. We have built this center as a multi-hazard warning center. So we have actually enhanced the capabilities of this center to be able to also provide storm surge early warnings. You all know that we have 3 to 4 cyclones every year. And then the India Meteorological Department provides information on the cyclones. And then we actually work under the same ministry, the IMD and Incois. So we use this forecast information, cyclone forecast information provided by IMD, to be able to run models that can actually provide information on expected surge heights along the coastal areas, along the areas where the cyclone is going to make its landfall. So this information is something which is being operationally generated and provided by Incois to IMD, and then is actually part of the bulletins that public gets from the India Meteorological Department. Over and above that, Incois also has a very popular service called the Ocean State Forecasting Service, where we actually forecast a host of products, the ocean parameters. We do it for 3 to 5 day forecasts. We have about 45 products, and in simple terms, these are products that help with the safety of navigation in the sea, in the coastal areas, like products like wave height, wave direction, swell height, swell direction, currents, and several others actually. So this information again goes along with the fishing information. It goes to the fishermen and all other maritime stakeholders. So in addition to information on where they can actually go for fishing, this information also tells them whether it is safe to go, and then how safe their navigation is going to be, whether they can go for fishing or not. So these products are provided not only for the Indian stakeholders, but it is also provided to several other stakeholders in the Indian Ocean region, neighboring countries like Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, etc. They all actually work with Incois and then take our products for their coastal regions. We also have products that help with marine search and rescue, which we work very closely with the Indian Navy and the Coast Guards. We use the data from our models, model simulations, the current simulations, to be able to provide information on the probable search areas where, if there is a lost object in the sea, what is the probable areas where actually the search should be conducted, so that there is a chance of finding the object. We also help with oil spill trajectory system is one system that we also work with the Indian Coast Guards to help them mitigate the threat of spreading of oil from any spill. So we again run a suite of ocean models, and then we provide information on if there is a spill of this quantity of this type, then what are the chances of where this spill will end up, so that they can actually take mitigative actions. We also provide information on multi-hazard assessments for the coastal areas. We work with several other institutes. What we have done in the last few years is developed maps at 1:100,000 scale, which we have enhanced recently with 1:25,000 scale. And these maps provide information on the hazard line. So it takes into consideration all composite hazards like tsunami, cyclone, flood, sea level rise, erosion. So we take this information, analyze historical data sets, analyze long-term tide gauge information, and then provide estimates of a hazard line. For example, for the next 50 years, considering certain repeat periods for several events, what will be the hazard line, coastal hazard line? Now that information has been generated for the whole coastline of the country. We have about we have identified 3,600 square kilometer of area, which for which we have done detailed mapping at the three-dimensional level. What you see on the right panel is actually buildings mapped at 3D level. And our idea is to be able to use this information to generate impact-based advisories. Now, whatever advisories we give, for example, if you say the wave height at the coast is going to be 5 meters, in some sense, it's useful for coastal navigation, but then what does that 5-meter height at the coast translate to the horizontal extent in the land, and how would it really impact the communities on the coast? Now, to be able to come up with such impact-based forecasts, we need these kind of data sets. These kind of base data sets are very important. And the coastal topography is very important. And then we have worked with NRSC of the Indian Space Research Organization to generate very high resolution coastal topography data using airborne sensors to develop these maps. Now we use a lot of technology tools, information communication technology tools, to reach this information to the coastal communities. Like, for example, say fishermen, if they can actually receive this information, for example, through a mobile phone. But what happens if they're out of the reach of a mobile phone? So we have also worked with ISRO to come up with certain satellite-based broadcast tools, like using satellites, the regional navigation satellite system, IRNSS. So we have come up with Gagan and Navik based tools, where actually with a small handset, fishermen, even outside the traditional range of mobile phone coverage, could be able to receive information. Of course, this is one way. There are other organizations working on similar other tools. But we work closely with NGOs, we work closely with fishermen to make sure that the communities understand this information, and then they're able to use this information. Coming to the what is the basis for using this? We need a lot of observing networks for us to be able to generate these advisories. So we have a huge network of ocean observing platforms. Ocean observations, as you can appreciate, is a very tough job. Unlike observations on the land, we need to either install buoys in the oceans, or robotic instruments in the oceans, or take ships and make measurements. So that is done through all our several institutes within our ministry, like National Institute of Ocean Technology, etc. So we run a huge network of observing platforms that helps us understand the oceans, simulate the oceans, and be able to generate these advisories. And these observing systems also help us validate our forecasts, and also we assimilate the data from these observing systems into our ocean models. So these are all the observing networks. I'll not get into the details, but just to give you a glimpse of a flavor of where all we have observing platforms. So it's a huge network that we manage. And these are some of the instruments that you see here, moored buoys out in the deep ocean, which are managed by NIOT, to very recent additions to our observing networks, like, for example, say gliders. We have just launched 2 gliders in the Bay of Bengal. So we are enhancing our observing networks so that we'll be able to provide, understand the oceans, and then provide advisories. We also do a lot of coastal observations to be able to validate our information. For example, this is actually a validation experiment that we do on, okay, if a fisherman goes with a fishing advisory, and then if it goes without a fishing advisory, what is the enhancement that actually he's getting in terms of reduction in search time, etc. So we do those kind of studies in association with several other academic institutions in the coastal areas. And we also have a huge satellite data reception capacity, because this actually, again, is the bread and butter of what we do. We analyze a lot of satellite data sets, so we have a satellite reception facility. And we also have something called a digital ocean, which is actually, we have the National Oceanographic Data Center for the country. And then all these data sets are made available to the researchers, to universities, to students, and to whoever needs this information. So we have a National Oceanographic Data Policy, which we follow to be able to make this information easily available to the stakeholders. So this is a very new interface called Digital Ocean that was inaugurated last December. which provides an interface to be able to even analyze the data on the fly. So this is something which we have done. And coming to ocean models, these again form the very basis of several of our advisories that we provide. So we've run a suite of models, starting right from global models to regional models to very local models, and starting right from ocean general circulation models to actually biogeochemical models. And then, of course, the next step is to really take it to ecosystem level, like Dr. Vivekanandan was mentioning, how it's very important to actually do the ecosystem management of fisheries. Now, I think that's the direction we all really need to go. But then going there requires a lot of capacities in terms of understanding, in terms of the suite of models that we use, in terms of computational capacities that we need to be able to run these models at a very high resolution. So all this is actually, these capacities are being built in the country. Like, for example, the MOS institutes, MOES has actually one of the very high performance computing facility in the country, which we all use, all the institutions use to be able to run these models and generate products. So we are going forward, we are coming up with a unified ocean modeling and forecasting framework, starting right from global models to local models, which is something Incois is also working with other stakeholder institutions. Like I already mentioned, we need huge computing capacities, which actually are available, and then we are enhancing them. And one thing that I also mentioned initially is ocean literacy, enhancing the capacities of different stakeholders, be it students, be it policymakers from within the country or outside other Indian Ocean rim countries. So Incois also hosts something called the International Training Center for Operational Oceanography, which is recognized as a Category 2 training center of the UNESCO, of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. So we provide a lot of training on operational oceanographic services, starting right from ocean observations to ocean modeling, ocean data management to services. So this is something which has become a major part of what we do at Incois. Now, coming to what are the benefits, I fully agree with Professor John Kurian when he said, when we talk about blue economy, we are actually looking at it from the lens of economy. Yeah, so that's something which I think will change slowly, where we'll be talking, I guess, hopefully more about the sustainable environmental and management, more of looking less at the economy, which is also important, but then more sustainability, I guess. But then when we actually make an assessment of how these services or the ecosystem services or disaster early warning services are actually making what are the economic benefits. So these are the kind of studies that we have actually, this is what some of the studies are showing us, that actually our investments in the oceans or management of our oceans, or our investments in setting up institutions, having trained manpower, investments in computer systems, or investments in observing systems, satellite systems. It's actually, when we look at the economy, what we actually get is far, far more than what we're investing. So it's a way of kind of making a case, because finally the policymakers or the politicians look at, okay, when you're putting some money, what is that you're actually benefiting from? So most of these services, we actually have huge benefits from the economic perspective. Like, for example, one tsunami warning, which actually results in no evacuation. If you actually, there's a huge earthquake, and then if you say that, okay, there is no threat of a tsunami, we don't need to evacuate, that itself, for one instance, could save around 3,500 crore rupees. So just trying to put things in that perspective. Or, if we actually give one fisheries advisory, how much actually are we going to make? So the benefits of investments in actually our oceans, it's actually far more actually. And now coming to environmental benefits, like, for example, some of these services, if we tell a fisherman that he should go here for fishing, if he spends, say, 30 to 70% less in search time, which means that he's actually spending a lot less diesel than he would actually spend and then he's putting less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now, these are some of the validation studies that were done by several other independent agencies like NIAP, CMFRI, for example, NCAER, which actually have come up with what is the environmental benefit of actually coming up with such advisory, starting from fisheries to ocean state forecast to observing systems to everything actually. So this is something I wanted to put it before you. So we have a framework when we are talking about sustainable management of our ocean resources and oceans. So we have a framework already in the country. There is institutional capacity within the country. Now the thing is actually putting this one and one together and then making it 11 actually. So I think that's what I want to put it before you within the ministry, within Incois, within other institutions in the ministry, and then other institutions outside in other ministries. There are these capacities. There is a scientific base, and there are services. There are observing networks. There are frameworks, national infrastructure available to be able to really now leapfrog from here and then have a sustainable management of our oceans. And then, of course, we have these new frameworks like other speakers mentioned before me. We have this draft India's Blue Economy Framework that's coming up, which is under discussion now. And then, of course, we have the SDG 14. And very importantly, the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which is being spearheaded by the IOC UNESCO. Very recently, India also, the Ministry of Earth Sciences has set up a UN Decade National Coordination Committee to actually come up with ways and means in which we can contribute to the UN Decade, and we can also benefit from what is going on under the UN Decade and then bring those benefits back into our country. So with this, I would conclude and then thank you for your patient listening.